one of our good friends, Pete Gaudet, couldn't be here, but he said, I'm going to send you something. And this is what he sent. And he said, maybe there's something in there that you can share. And so I haven't had time, I'm sorry, I did not look at all of this last night. But there are two things that are fairly short reads. I'm just going to pass around. You can put this in your folder, and then, when you get home tonight, tomorrow, or the weekend, whatever. One thing is an article on John Havlicek. The other thing is an article on the Warriors and kind of how each player plays their role. Like really good stuff. So I'm going to pass those around. You can sit on those, but we appreciate Coach Gaudet contributing to the clinic, even though he's not here. So I'll let you guys pass those on that side. You guys can pass those that way, make sure everybody gets one. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Lundy from Queens. Thanks.
Thank you, John.
You want it all?
Playbook, I'll give it to you. Maybe you can understand it.
Who shouted my following up here?
Mine.
That was you?
You know I can't do
I just want to know whose mess I was cleaning up. The bucket.
Hold it, I'll say it. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Coach. Coach Burke, you get this Havlicek article.
Yeah, I did one of those.
Everybody good? All right, appreciate everybody listening to me harp on up here. John, thank you for, first of all, doing this and inviting me. And I thought yesterday we talked about it was as good as anything I've ever been to. I'll try to make sure that that's degraded this morning. But thanks for doing this and having me. I'll tell you my story just a little bit before I start. Grew up in a small town in Virginia, Galax. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. It's on the side of the mountain. Moved away from there when I was in 9th grade, went to 5 different high schools all around North Carolina, played for some really good coaches. Some of you may know Larry Parrish, used to run Prep Stars, played for Larry at Southern Durham, went to Guilford County Schools, ended up graduating from Hickory High School, and I didn't keep getting tossed out of school. My family was moving. Played for a guy named Tom Bonebrake at Hickory High. Knew that I wanted to coach college basketball since I was little. I had an uncle who's still the soccer coach at the College of Charleston. I didn't know anything about soccer, but he used to bring me. He started out at Erskine, and I would go there and spend part of the summer with him and run around the campus and get in trouble. But watch the coaches and watch the players, and that's kind of what sparked me on this journey. Went to UNC Pembroke, played for Dan Kenny.
You were in Pembroke State.
Pembroke State, that's right. That's right, I didn't want to offend them. Played for Dan Kenny. Coach Kenny left and went to Winthrop. I left when he left and went to play for John Lentz at Lenore Ryan. Coach Kenny gave me my first job at Winthrop. And was there for a couple of years. Met a guy named Dale Lair at Queens. Dale had an assistant's job open. I took the assistant's job with Dale. Was there 3 years with Dale. Dale got the, Queens has a really for the length of program that it's been in existence, has a pretty deep coaching tree. Part of that tree was Richie McKay, who's now the head coach at Liberty. Richie became, at that time, the head coach at Colorado State. Dale went to be his assistant, and at 25, I think because I was already losing my hair, they had no idea how old I was. I got the job at Queens when Dale left. Was there 5 years. Got the head coaching job at High Point at 31. I took over for a guy named Jerry Steele. If you guys know, some of you might have heard of him. He's a legend and a great man. He had been there 31 years. I was 31 years old. It was a difficult transition. Jerry had been the AD, had hired most of the people there. So at 31, stepped into a Division I job, fledgling Division I job for sure, a glorified Division II job, and was trying to sweep up after they had fired a legend. And I learned a lot from Coach Steele on how to handle, not sure I was good at it later on, but how to handle that kind of situation. Because when everybody else was attacking me and I was just the guy that applied for a job, Coach Steele was coming in behind saying, hey, hold on, this guy's just a basketball coach. No. Was there 6 years, had success, had, my last year had a first losing season and new AD and got fired. And at the same time was going through a divorce. So that was a fairly difficult year. And you get to figure out who you are and what you are and where you're going to go. I was very fortunate that part of that tree with Dale Lair included a guy named Buzz Williams. And I had gotten to know over the years George Raveling a little bit. And Coach Raveling always says, as you go up, you better plant flowers, because on your way down, you're gonna have to pick them. And somewhere along the line, I had planted some seeds with Buzz Williams, and he hired me at Marquette. And basically called me. I was searching for a job. I was ready to take some job in Maine to feed my family. He called me, said, what were you making at High Point? I told him what I was making. He said, how much were you making in camp? I told him what I was making. And he paid me exactly what I was making at High Point. So there aren't many human beings like that in the world. So I went to Marquette, had an unbelievable job there for 3 years in the old Big East. That was a brutal league. Every night was a Hall of Famer. And it was kind of, as a basketball purist, it's kind of a dream job. We talked about it a little bit last night. And don't repeat this, but we weren't obeying the rules. I was the director of basketball operations. All I did was coach. On the floor, scouting reports, all of it. All summer I'm studying what we did. All summer I'm studying our opponents. So if you wanted to just do basketball for a while, it was as good as you could get. And you know, you think you know some stuff about this game, and then you get to that highest level and you see what those guys are doing and the tools they're doing them with, what you guys do on a daily basis in the NBA. And you really, it changes your whole perspective on things. So 3 years there. Met a guy named Tony Benford, worked with him those 3 years. He got the job at the University of North Texas. I think I told this story last year. He got the job at, he was offered the job at SMU. He comes in my office and says, Bar, I'm going to SMU, will you come with me? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I told him I would. He was gonna accept the job that next morning at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Overnight, a guy named Larry Brown had gotten to the AD in the biggest booster, and they had flipped Tony and offered him, instead of being the head coach, the coach in waiting. first time I'd heard that term, coach in waiting. He turns that down, and then 2 days later, he comes back in my office and said, hey, you know, SMU's right down the road from North Texas. He said, I've just been offered and accepted the head job at North Texas. You gonna come with me? Because I told him I'd go to SMU, and I started going, okay, where is North Texas? I knew where SMU was. So I ended up in Denton, Texas, outside of Dallas for a year. All the time trying to get back to the East Coast. Fortunately for me, after a year at North Texas, Queens built a brand new facility. Coaching job, the head coaching job there came open. I hadn't pissed them off enough the first time that they didn't hire me back, and I came back to Queens. I've been back 6 years. So that's, in a nutshell, my story. We're gonna talk about special situations. And to me, and this is how memorable my speech was last year. John forgot that I spoke on this topic last year. I'm sure this will be just as memorable too. But to me, special situation starts with discipline. Because if you don't have discipline, and if you don't get everybody on the same page, then you can have the best plays in the world, and it only takes one guy to screw it up. So I believe that is where all of this starts, and maybe that's your entire program, but especially when you get in those tense moments where execution matters, where everybody being together on the same page, your huddles being right, all of it has to come together. So it all starts with the discipline. And I'll try to look and see, you can see the intro topics, I'll probably bounce around. I'm not good at staying on topic. So I told somebody yesterday, I told Dip to his face, one of the best things I saw last year, it was the regional semifinal, and Dip was playing USC Aiken. USC Aiken went up like 25 in the first half. Game was over. They're up 25 with like 15 minutes to play. And you never count that dude out, because Dip's team kept hammering, didn't make any spectacular plays, just kept coming, kept chipping away at it. Brought it all the way back. They're down 3 with, I don't know how many seconds. I don't know the exact scenario, but last play of the game. And he runs the Brad Stevens play from side out of bounds, where they set a butt screen for the post player, who catches it on the other side of the rim, catches it here, instead of, would you call that a hammer screen if you were hammering back this way? An up screen for the shooter. So they throw it all the way across the rim. Diagram it for you. I don't know exactly how they ran it. Let's say it was the 1 here, 4 here, and 3 throwing it in. Something along these lines. I'm not even sure which way he went. They threw it here. Would you call that a hammer?
Usually it's on the sideline, but yeah, close enough.
Close enough.
Flare.
A flare,
Yeah.
yeah. So they throw it all the way across. Perfect pass. 5-man catches it, throws it to the shooter, knocks down 3. Overtime, they win in overtime.
Wow.
Yeah. And you can say, okay, that was a great play. That was a great play. But there's a lot more that went into that play than just what the guys did. There had to be, you don't run this without having practiced it. You don't run this unless you can get those guys in the huddle and get them all on the same page, get them all calmed down, and make it all happen. Imagine trying to run that on the fly. It only takes one little thing. This screen doesn't happen the right way. He doesn't take the right angle. He doesn't throw the pass to the corner of the backboard, which is the only thing that Dip had to worry about, because he had to look at the guy and go, hey, throw the fucker to the corner of the backboard. And he told me something yesterday. I'm always learning from Dip. Always learning from Dip. He's unbelievable. He's like, how did he put it? He said, I learned from Kevin Eastman a long time ago. Don't put your best passer as the passer in those situations, because they'll overthink it. They'll overthink it. Just put a guy who's going to do what you say. So he said, I didn't put my best passer here, but I had to in the huddle go, hey, throw that fucker right to the corner of the backboard, which is exactly what he did. But that play happens. That play happens because of what Dip did yesterday in his presentation. And if you don't, I don't know, some of you may not have seen it, but he went through all the things he does with his team over the course of the year. And all I could get out of that was buy-in, 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 buy-in. And if you can execute this after coming back from 25 down with 15 to play, you got some buy-in. So I think it starts with discipline. We kind of get our discipline from our preseason and from a little bit of what Dip was talking about yesterday, only we go at it in a little different way. Our preseason is brutal, and I won't go through it all. I went through it last year, but it's brutal, and they've got to all make everything that we do, whether it's a four-man group or we're doing it as a team. Everything is a win or a loss, and if you're in a group of four, if one guy loses, you all lose. And we kind of build on that. So I don't know if you want to call it collective suffering, but through collective suffering, we create discipline. And I learned a lot of this from Buzz. I told somebody last night, Buzz was never, he didn't grow up doing individual workouts, and he wasn't a big X and O guy. He was a recruiter, really, until he got the head job at New Orleans, but then his second year, he was only there 1 year. His second year as a head coach was at Marquette. So he really had to study and bring himself kind of up to speed, because he had just chased players. That's what he was. He was a recruiter. He just chased players his whole career. But what he was unbelievable at, and still is keeping those guys disciplined and keeping them on a razor edge. And I wish I could keep my guys on the edge. He keeps his guys. I mean, you look at what they did this year with that team. I mean, you take one guy off that team, they're the size of an average Division II team. They're going in beating UVA and Duke, and just because they're so tough and they play so hard, and he keeps those guys on edge. I was in that system for 3 years, and I will tell you, he keeps staff on edge, keeps everybody on edge, and he just grinds you out. But within that, you grow and you become really good. So the next thing I would say is as you go through, I don't know, Coach from the Wizards said it yesterday, and he had said it the year before. What did he say? Dogs, children, and NBA players sniff out bullshit. I think college players do too, and probably high school, probably all players do. If you're not organized, they're gonna know it. And I think special situations is something that you don't have to spend tons of time on, but you gotta organize it. You don't need 52 side out of bounds plays. Maybe if you're coaching women's basketball now, you do. You gotta have a lot more than we gotta have. But have what you need in your toolbox. For me, I went to, stop writing, earmuffs. For me, on the side out of bounds, because we never were really in a lot of these situations, we'll have one play like this for a 2, one play for a 3, and it changes every year. It changes all the time. But I went to running our secondary actions. We run a lot of pistol and and different actions in our secondary, or we call it sequence. But I started running those on the side out of bounds. So if we had the ball on the side, we get our point guard to that spot, everybody's in their spots, and it's not something we gotta reteach. And we can get a lot out of that. So if you're scouting us on the side out of bounds plays, it's gonna be pretty difficult because we're running something different every time. And they're actually executing it because it's stuff that we work on all the time. But my point is, just be organized enough that you know exactly what you're doing and you can relay that to your guys. And we'll go over some of those scenarios as we go on. But I think it takes a little bit of time, but once you've got it, and then you can give it to your players. For us, when I think of special situations, it is everything outside of the meat and potatoes of offense and defense. It's everything else. It's everything else. And this is only a small list. I don't get into in this list, how do you do your halftime during games? You know, how much time are you gonna spend with your coaches? Are you sending an assistant coach in at halftime to talk to your guys about the scouting report or review something before you get in there? Are you, Buzz was great where we had the games within the games, which we'll go over in a second, and he would, before he did anything, he would kind of go over where we were statistically with that stuff. How do you organize your halftime? How do you organize your huddles? You got 30 seconds, you got full, what's up, coach?
What's going on?
You got fulls, how do you organize all that stuff? So I didn't put some of those examples down here, but when you think about special situations, you've got to be all encompassing in everything outside of the meat and potatoes. So I'll go over the games within the games for us. So my organization. So we've got what everybody does: free throw makes versus free throw attempts. So you got games within games. Everybody kind of does this. So we want to make more than they attempt. I think we were second in the country in free throw makes last year. Transition. So a lot of this is just to eliminate losing. If you're shooting more free throws than your opponent, and we got to shoot a lot of free throws to do that because we foul a lot. But don't get it twisted. The numbers have to add up. You start looking at free throw numbers. You start looking at how many offensive rebounds you're giving up, how many turnovers you have. Like your numbers have to add up. So we want to end every game, and I won't get into a lot of math, but we want to end every game with a 10 possession cushion. And if you've got a 10 possession cushion within the rebound margin, the turnovers, the free throws, you're going to give yourself a pretty good chance to win. Does that make sense? So the eliminating losing is also, you're going to create a cushion to win. Because if I've got 10 more possessions than Ben, then we can have a bad shooting night. We can have those 3 for 20 nights and buffer it. Out of bounds. And we lump the side and the out of bounds under together, and we want to be +4. It used to be +6. I thought that was a little unreasonable with the number that we have, but we want to be +4 in that category. If you've ever read, what's his book called? Rick Majerus' Life on a Napkin. He talks a little bit about how they wanted to be +10, I think.
+4, just 2 baskets, or +4 like,
Points.
okay, points.
Points. +4 points. Did I say transition?
No.
No. So if you want to eliminate losing, you're talking about turnovers, transition baskets, and fouling. And then you can get into some rebounding. But especially those things are the things that you've got to eliminate. To me, so we are 50, my assistants always know these numbers. I think we're 52-2 over the last 4 seasons in November and December. Before this year, we lost 2 games this year in November and December. We had gone to three previous years undefeated. And if you count every college basketball program at every level in NCAA, NAIA, and JUCO, there's about 1,200 programs, and no one else had gone undefeated in January and in November and December, I'm sorry. So we lost 2 this year, but that's over the last 4 years. And the approach that we take, other than the discipline and getting them in shape, when I say discipline, like, we're gonna start behind the line. I'm gonna say ready, go. When you run, you're gonna touch every line. Like, it's serious. It's serious. And at the same time, we're loving them. So we're breaking them down, and then we're trying to give them a lot of love. We do things like we circle them up, and everybody gets to tell their story. At Marquette, there was a guy named Dr. Joe Carr, and I was there during the NBA lockout, and Dr. Carr did this seminar for us. He's a sports psychologist, and he would take the ball, and the ball he called the cake. You couldn't talk unless you had the cake, but you would tell your story. And we all think we know our players until you ask them to tell their story. And then you start to figure out, wow, I really didn't know a lot about them, and they don't know a lot about each other. Ask your players, hey, Jermaine, how many brothers and sisters did Daniel Carr have? He'll have no idea. He'll have no idea. So you start to learn each other, right? But it's got to be intentional. So as we're breaking them down in the preseason, we're kind of building this camaraderie. And I like to say, like, we're our own cult. We are literally a cult. Queens basketball is a cult. In a good way. In a good way. You know, you gotta go to Pembroke to get the bad juice. But I think that's part of this. And then the other approach is we eliminate losing. So we spend a lot of time, we gotta win out of bounds. We've gotta win transition. Like, we can give up, I think early in the year especially, you lose games because you give up transition points. Especially early. And then I think during tournament basketball, if you give up transition, then you're in trouble. In January, February, I think everybody's kind of finding their niche with their offenses, and you're pretty good at everything. But early and late, transition is huge.
Pardon. Hold that thought right where you are. I'm gonna back up for 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, when everybody's sharing their story, you're sharing the cake. Do you do everybody in one session? Does everybody share their story in one session? So you can be there for a while.
Yeah, probably 5 hours.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a Sunday afternoon
okay,
kind of deal.
all right.
Or a retreat, you know, Dip was talking about taking his guys into the woods. Like, we would do that at Marquette. We did the Joe Carr thing one year. We took them to some rundown YMCA camp, and so the guys had to sleep on cots, and you know, and some of them were in tents, and we practiced outside on an outdoor court, like really practiced outdoor court. And then Dr. Carr would come in, and it was kind of that break them down, but build this camaraderie, you know, build a cult.
So when you do that at Queens,
Mhm.
do you have a Dr. Carr?
Me.
Okay,
I can't afford Dr. Carr.
right,
But
understood. So that's what I want to know. Do you feel like, obviously you can do it, some idiot like me could possibly do it?
if this idiot can do it, that idiot can do it.
All right, very good.
So literally, all I do is I start with the ball, and I say, okay, and I usually start myself, you know. I'll tell them, goods and bad things about my life, I mean, they wanna know, they know that I've got a blended family, they wanna know, how'd I go through a divorce, what's my relationship with different people in my life, how fucked up is coach, That's what they want. And then I'll toss it to the next guy, and he'll start, so. So that's what I meant with Dip's doing it with all those activities. I don't really do a lot of activities, but we do a lot of intentional stuff where we are digging into real things with our
Did
guys.
you limit the talent, or did they just go?
They just go. Some of the stuff, like Dr. Carr would dig into them, and then he would follow up like a psychologist, one guy, had a bad relationship with his father, but he wrote a letter to his father, telling him everything he wanted to tell him, and then we burned the letter, like ceremoniously. And some of the stuff was over the top, we brought him to North Texas, and, we had a kid from Serbia, had a girlfriend in France, and like every college kid had cheated on his girlfriend. So Dr. Carr makes him in front of the team call his girlfriend on speakerphone and tell her. And we're all going, this is gonna go bad. This is gonna go really bad. So he gets her on the phone in coach's office. The whole team is there. And he tells her what he's doing. Like, I'm here, I'm with my team. I feel really guilty about something. I have to tell you so I can move on and be my best self. I'm going, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be really bad. And he goes, I have to tell you, a month ago, I was at a party, I cheated on you. All you just click. I was like, oh, my kid starts crying. So. Sometimes it's better not to have a psychologist there. We might have, yeah.
With Cliff, we'll end there.
Yeah.
You started to say something about Jarris, and he was 10 plus, was something else you were gonna add?
Yeah, out of bounds.
Yeah. Is there anything else you were gonna add to that?
Next that.
No, it was just that, so Majerus would play really slow. They play really methodical. And, so the plus 10 was like a religion for them. I mean, he spent all this time on just out of bounds. Because he knew that if he slowed the game down and he limited the possessions in the game and then he dominated the out of bounds, he was gonna win. So, we play a lot more possessions and, I couldn't be, what Rick Majerus could do with his teams as far as their discipline, but I think these games within the games and tracking them, super important.
How are you measuring the transition? You have a number for that, or you just?
I do, so we wanna be,